welcome to another Darwin Innovation Hub Lunch and Learn. Today's is all about hosting your vibe-coded apps on standard web hosting. In my case, I'm going to be using SiteGround web hosting today. It was very similar to a lot of these CPanel hosting you see on different providers like HostGator and Bluehost and a lot of the Web Central kind of ones as well, Crazy Domains, all those. Very, very similar. It's just maybe a slightly different interface. But there are a few assumptions we need to make before we go too deeply into this. And the first one is that firstly, this is a standardized PHP, HTML, and JavaScript web app. It's not going to be built in React. It's not going to be built using Node.js, any of those kind of things. It's going to be a very, very simple technology stack, which runs most web apps anyway. Very, very few times you need to have anything that goes any more big than this. If you're running a small web app for yourself or just for a small customer base rather than for a lot of people like in the millions. If you want to scale up to the millions, this is definitely not the webinar for you. This is for you to be able to host your own stuff that you're building in Claude, or in Gemini or even ChatGPT in their canvas as well. The second thing to understand is this is not for advanced users. This is not for people who are literally going to try and go to the cloud and use scalable structure such as Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud or any of that sort of stuff. It's not that. This is not using Supabase. It's not using GitHub, any of that sort of stuff. We're not using any of that stuff at all. What we're doing is just you've built yourself a little app here. You want to be able to run it, but it does need a few elements such as a place to host it, but also a place to host the database. And in the case of the database we're using here is going to be something like just MySQL, or in some providers use MariaDB or Postgres SQL, but in this case it's just going to be a MySQL database, regular PHP hosting, the kind of stuff you would host a WordPress website on, that sort of thing. So with all that in mind, let's get you shared because this is not a super hard thing to do, but you do have to have a little bit of an understanding about web hosting, which I'll try and explain to you along the way. Get that screen shared and get underway, huh? So the first place I'm going to start is in Claude, which is where I build all my stuff now, but it could just as easily be Gemini. It could be Grok does a lot of coding to different degrees. ChatGPT has become actually a very powerful coding tool now. So you've got the ability to be able to do these things. So what I'll look at is in my Claude, I've got a couple of things here. I've got a learning management system I produced, a master file for that learning management system, an association system as well. So I'm going to go into one of these projects. The one that's really probably the smaller one would probably be this association system. So I'm going to pull this out. And the last one I built was over here in this chat here. So I don't use Claude Code yet. I use just the chatbot in Claude to be able to do all this sort of stuff. So you can see it's a very long conversation of chatting backwards and forwards, working out errors, all that sort of thing. But at the end of it, what I've got is a set of files that I can use to drop somewhere. So what I've done here, I've done a repo. What I'm going to do here, this was something I was going to put into a holding thing over in a thing called GitHub, which is like a bit of a repository where I store all of my base code. So if I ever want to build something that's sort of like forked off of this, and by forked, I mean take the base code and turn it into something else, I've got that base code safely locked away somewhere, not just sitting here in Claude. So what I really want to do is ask this, please package up all files and database into a quick start method to run, and you'll put your particular web host on here. Mine's SiteGround hosting, web hosting using a MySQL database. So again, to sort of say what we're doing, this is standard web hosting you'd normally put like a website on. So something like WordPress will go on this same kind of stuff. So I've gone there, please package up. I don't have to say please, but I tend to. All the files and database into a quick start method to run on SiteGround web hosting using a MySQL database. So I'm using just Sonnet here. I don't need the maximum thinking. So I'm going to turn that effort down a little bit because I don't really need a lot of effort on its part to do this. So hit that, and what it's going to do is package together all the files. So if I go, so up here, you see it produces a download here. This is the previous download I did. I want to produce a new one because I need it to give me something that's specifically geared towards putting onto this kind of web hosting. So it's got, there's already an install wizard. That's great. So it's already there. Let me see how completed it and what's missing. So this is basically, it will give me not just the files I need. It's going to give me all of the everything I need as far as like how to get a database set up, which we'll go through that, and how to get the information onto that database so it runs within our app. Now, trust me when I say this none of this ever works straight out of the box when I install it. I've never once had it just work. I need to go and change some things and update some things, but pretty much this is getting the most workable version I've had up until this point that I know works already elsewhere on hosting. So it should now produce me a bunch of files in a package zipped and that I can then load up to that web hosting. So I've got my web hosting over here. I'm going to log into it and I'm going to load it into a specific directory under a domain name that I've already got. So I've already got my web hosting. I've already got my domain name and all this. I'm going to put it in a directory under that. So let's have a look. We're going into my websites here. Your interface may look a little bit different to what mine is. I just use this one because it's very simple for me to use. I'm a simple guy. I'm going to use the ASOC domain, site tools. And I'm going to go into, once it opens up. So it's still packaging up my files over here. So I'm just getting all the preparation work done. I've got a file manager. So in my file manager under public HTML right there, that is going to be where we put any of our live files. So I've got a bunch of live files in here. I'm going to create a new folder. So it's going to create a directory, which is asoc.com.au / and we're going to call this one live. So what it will do eventually is go asoc.com.au / live. There's nothing in there at the moment, but there is at least a folder. And it says it's forbidden because there's nothing in there, right? I haven't allowed anything to go in there yet. So inside that live directory, I can then load up the files that I've been provided. So let's go back to Claude to get this done. So it's updating a quick start markdown package. It's now zipping all that together and it's giving me the exact process over here of how to install it, because I've been really super specific about the kind of hosting I'm using and the kind of technical stack I'm using, being a PHP server running MySQL as the database. Then it goes, okay, I know what you need here. Let me give you the information. If you don't know what that information is, you can just go, I am hosting on this hosting provider. Give me the instructions for that hosting provider. And we'll go, oh, yeah, well, HostGator uses CPanel for its management of its server system. So step 1, step 2, step 3, as it's given me over here. So step 1, create a database, create a user, assign a user to the database with all privileges and keep those things handy. Remember, if you don't understand what it's talking about there, you can ask it to explain what that is. You can reply to what I just highlighted. So I just highlighted that. You can reply to that and go, can you please explain this step by step because I've never done this before? And it will give you those instructions. We won't do that because we'll run out of time if I have to do that every time. So I'm going to go into my site tools. At the moment, I've got a file manager. I've got a directory. What I don't have yet is my database. So what I'll do is go over to the side here where I've got site and I've got MySQL. MySQL is the kind of database infrastructure I'm using. So MySQL comes up with a MySQL manager. So SQL is just the standard simple query language, which is used to connect a website through to a database. So I'm going to create database. It's going to give me a name. What I need to do with that name is copy that and paste that into some kind of note software that I've got somewhere. So I've got a note software on the side. So I'm going to put the name down and copy there so I've got access to it. What I also need is a user of that database. So notice that this one's starting with ending with CUF. So I'm going to look for that as I create a user here. The user creates automatically, and it's this. So I'm going to copy and paste that into my little notes over here as well. So I've got a copy of that. So I now know that I need to put this user to have control over that particular database that ended with VCUF. So let's go and manage access for this user. Manage access, select a database, CUF, there it is there. And I want it to have all privileges. Just like it said in the instructions, it needs to have all the privileges. So I've kept them handy, the database name, the username, and the password. So let's go back into there and see what I've done. All privileges confirmed. And it's got now a password. So I've got to take down that password as well and make sure I've got that aside. If you don't have any of those things noted down, you're not going to be able to then be able to get into all this. You need to go and set it all up again. So I know I've got my user, my database name, I've got my username, I've got my password all put aside. Let's continue the journey. So now it's saying upload and extract the zip. Upload the base folder contents, not the base folder itself, but into your public HTML or wherever you're loading it into. So for instance, I'm not loading it into public HTML ICCWA. I'm loading into public HTML / live is where I'm doing it. So I need to put it there. So let's do that. I'm going to go over here, go into my live under my file manager. Sorry if this is moving fast. There's a reason why I'm recording this, and I will put it on YouTube later today, so you can go and revisit these and sort of stop and pause and go back a bit, so you can follow this a bit more closely. But in my live directory, which is now open, I'm going to go upload, file upload. Is this one here? I'm going to grab my, I haven't even downloaded it yet. That's how silly I am. Let's go and download that file first. So download. And then what I want to do is I want to sort of unpack that file first. So I'm going to live, upload, oops, wrong one, this file, which you can't see, but you know, it's now starting to upload it. So it loaded up, it was pretty quick, very, very quick upload. I'm going to now extract this. So in my particular one, we've got an extract button here. In CPanel, it might be compress, decompress, something like that. The language might be a little bit different with some. So remember what it said. It said I need to unpack this into a particular place. So it said to load it into your public HTML or your public HTML ICCWA. So in my case, it's not in public HTML. It's in a subfolder of public HTML. That's where I need to put it. So this at the moment is sitting in there, but it told me that the files that are inside the base folder, I can't even see the base folder yet. So let's go in here. And we should, there we go, there's the base folder. So it said not the base folder, but the contents of the base folder. So let's open up the base folder. I can now highlight every one of those. And I'm going to move them into the top of this live folder. So move is this button here. I'm going to go into live, get rid of all these. I'm taking everything out of all of this except for live. That's exactly where I need those files. Let's confirm it will now move those files. So as I go into base and then I go up the ladder here to the ASOC ICCWA SiteGround, I can get rid of that base now because I don't need it. It doesn't exist anymore. And I can go up one more level to live and get rid of this one here. I don't need that one anymore either. That's the ones I loaded up. So it's now everything's in the right place. Now I'm going to go and go, okay, set permissions in the file manager. Now, as part of what SiteGround and CPanel and whatever you might use for your web hosting, they automatically set these permissions for all the files to what the default is. So you've already got all of that. So you don't need to do that. So you can move on from that. You don't need it. I also remember I loaded up that zip file. I don't need that anymore because I've already loaded it up, so I can delete that too. I've now got all my clean files in there. Let's go back to the instructions. Set permissions, we don't need to do that because SiteGround already does it. Now what we're going to do is run an installer. So you're going to go yourdomain.com/install. Now the difference for us is that's not the name of our domain. So let's go there. We need to change that domain to, sorry, you can't see those little writings, a bit unclear there, the asoc.com.au / and then remember our location is live and then install. So this is usually where everything falls down. I need to go back and say, I'm getting this error, help me out. Let's see what it does. Okay, it's looking good. It's doing its pre-flight check. So in what I've created, it's created all this as part of it to do that installation. So remember when I asked it to package it up a certain way, to be packaged up for this kind of web hosting, this is part of how it packaged that up. So it's going to go, I'm currently running PHP 8.2 plus, which is okay. These are the requirements of the system. And all those requirements are found by this installer. So it's like, okay, we can do this. Now we continue to the database. Localhost is the default. 3306 is usually the case. It very, very rarely is not. Now we'll put in the username. So I've got the username of the database already put aside. So the name, sorry, of it. So I've just copy and paste that from my note-taking software. I'm going to be sharing a password on here. That's only because I happen to, I'm going to delete this whole thing after I'm done with it. So it's not going to actually live here. So I've got the username, which I'm going to post in there too, which is this. And then the password for that access, I'm going to copy that in as well. And there is no table prefix. So in my case, I get rid of that. It doesn't really need it. And then I can test it. It's going to say, hey, does this make sense? Yeah, it's looking good. We're happy with this. What is the name of the website you're creating? So I'm going to call it the My Association website. Association website. And then the association email is now going to be whatever email I want. I can info@clickstarter.com.au. This is basically the contact email address of the owner of the website, the admin of the website. So I can go Dante St. James is the admin account. I'm going to put in an email in there. So that one, it's going to fill in an automatic password that I've already got. Continue. It's saying, this is what we're about to do. Let's run that installation. So it's now running it. It's saying, okay, I cannot find this particular base table. It's not finding it. So what I'm going to do is try and solve that. So I'm going to put in to my Claude where I built all this and go, here we go. This is the error I'm getting. So what I told you, you'll never get this first go. It'll always have an error somewhere. So it's found the database. What it's essentially saying in here is that there's a table that's not found in that database. So nothing has been created in that database to set up specific tables to be populated with the data that this system requires. So one of the steps is actually missing from there. It just hasn't created the layout within the database that it needs to be able to run. So we look at that and it's going essentially the same as running the module registration before anything's done. So it's an ordering fix. So what it's going to do, it's going to then reorder what it's doing to basically set up the database structure before it tries to populate it with data. So it's a mistake that Claude actually made. What it's doing, it's now going to fix that error, and we essentially go through that process again. What I'm going to do though, I know a little bit about these systems where I can go in there and find the file that I need, and then I'm going to copy it in there myself. So in the quick start here, I can see a document which is telling us all that information. So for instance, I can now call in the bits and pieces that I need for that database. So it's not in that one, but it might be in, say, for instance, under maybe ASOC system database. And there is my full schema. So in there, I'm going to take all this and I'm going to go into another section. Hopefully you never have to go through this, but what I have to do is go into my MySQL again. And I'm going to go into, remembering I'm using this one, the CUF database. I'm going to go to my PHP, my admin, and I'm actually going to go in there and create those tables myself because I don't want to have to do reinstall all over again. So honestly, this does get pretty complicated. So you may need some help with someone who kind of knows their way around these when you do it the first time. So what I'm going to do is go into that database, CUF, and then I'm going to go to SQL. Again, hopefully you'll never have to do this. Paste in all that schema, which is basically the layout of what it needs to do to create this database. And I'm going to go. It's now created all the things I need within that database. So I look at the structure now. It now has a structure in that database. So this is all the different tables, and inside those tables are all the fields and all the instructions going to run this website for, or this web app for us. So that's done. Now I'll go back in and we'll continue. So if I run this again, this installer, it should now find that table. So let's give it a go. Run the installation and it's now succeeded. So it found that table and did it. It's told us our admin login is here. So it's given us a bunch of instructions. So we need to take that, put that over here. Our admin email, and then whatever the password happens to be. So I set. So let's go over here, go live with that. So that's good. We don't mind the page not found, but look, it actually has installed a website in here, which is my web app. So I can click from point to point, and it's actually got all the information I need in there. It's created. What it's done though, this is going to another site. So if I go back to the original site, that's at the top. It actually says live when we begin up here, but it's actually jumped to other places. So I need to change all those references in there. So it's not yet a production ready web app, but it's getting close. So once I've done that, I've got essentially everything I need to have installed there. I need to now log in. Now it's already gone over to this login to the wrong location. So I need to fix all that up. So there's a file I need to I've used the worst example of files I could have used. So let me go into some of these files. There's a config file, which I've got in here, which I'll need to change to point it to the right place. So under live and then under, I remember where it is, it's under environment, the environment file, the env file. It's telling me where my site actually is. So it's live and everything in there is set up correctly, but it's just not going to the right place. So I might need to go back into my database and go into a config file. So it's not CRM, it's not article. I'll find it eventually. Or what I can do is go, you know what, this is not working. It's bringing up a 404. So let's just ask Claude. It'll help us out. It's bringing up a 404 on the front page. And now I'll explore that a bit and tell us what's actually going wrong there. So the HT access rewrite rules aren't routing requests to the right place. Let me check what's in it. So it's going, okay, it's going to ICCW8. That's our problem. So there was a file. So I can take that instruction or I can let it rewrite everything again and download it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into the files and create that myself. So there's htaccess file here. Double click, open it. And in here, there's a rewrite base ICCWA. God, you're probably thinking, holy crap, I'm never going to understand this. So in this case, I'm going to go live is where everything is located. Save it. Now, once I go and reinstall, so I'm just going to quickly clear my cache so it actually gets the new instructions from the new file, and we'll be able to get that. So yeah, again, this is going to be, this is what I mean. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's one of those things that does require you to have a little bit of knowledge about how to work with web hosting. So I've done this quite a long time, so I do have that knowledge. So I go to the live login. Now it's giving me more errors. But now this is what I mean. Like there's never going to be a time when this just works straight out of the box for you. You're going to have to work through the errors. So if I go, for instance, it's saying the database connection failed. It's not going to the right place. So we need to go and fix that up. So I'm going to go back into Claude and ask it, now I'm getting this error. So I just copied and pasted the error in. It'll understand what's going on and go, oh, yeah, I know. Okay, let me fix this. So the environment file wasn't written correctly by the installer. So this is what I mean. For very basic things that are using just an internal few things that don't require a database, it's really, really simple. You copy, you paste, you go in there, it works. When you're using databases, that's when things get a little bit complicated. So this is the one. So in here, it's going to problem 1, problem 2. Here's the fixes. Let me fix those files. So it's going to give me a bunch of fixed files that I can download and load in over the top of the old ones. And hopefully that's going to work. So let's see what it does. It's verifying those, all 4 match. Let's repackage up the download. And I'm going to re-upload all those files over the top. So I need to delete the existing env file from the server. Okay, well, let's go and delete that env file from the server. So under our site tools, under our file manager, this env site file, let's delete it. And let's go back to where it's creating all that. It's given us now the new files. So I'm going to pick up those files, unpack them, and I'm going to just dump them over the top of where I've got it. So I'm going to pick up those files, go into my file manager. What I do is just open it up on my desktop so you can't see that part, but I'm just dumping that on drop files and it will now overwrite all those files with the new information. Let's overwrite. Now uploading 143 files, so it takes a moment or two just to get that going. Once it does, then we hopefully should get past that one error. And once we get past that error, then sometimes we get a new error that we have to work through. But what you're doing is essentially, when you come across an error, report it back to Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT and say, I'm having this error. And it will then more successfully understand it. Now, I've actually got this piece of software already working elsewhere. The problem is that it was made for a very specific location on the web to be located. And I've gone and trying to publish it into somewhere else. That's why it's giving me these errors. So we go in there, we look at all this, we go, okay, this all succeeded. I essentially got a front page that now doesn't work. I'm going to clear my cache again. And let's see what we get now that all of that hopefully is uploaded. Yep, 143 files uploaded. So I'm still getting an error in here. So it's going to the right place. It's just not doing the right thing with the database. So what it's probably done is now overwritten my database rules. So I need to go back in and redo those again. So what I can do is go back to this installer and actually do that all over again. So go like this, and it's already installed, so I can't do that. But what I can do is put that information in again somewhere else. So if I go back and look at our error, I've got that again. I just report it back to Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT and say, this is the error I'm having, and it will give you more ongoing fixes. Now, in the case of when I did this about 2 weeks ago, it took me about 2 hours of fixes that kept getting there. And also, I've forgot to delete this little file here, the ASOC storage install lock. So I can go in there and uninstall that. Well, it's going to give you a set of examples. You keep going in there and you make those changes as it does. So it doesn't even have an install lock file in there. So that's good. It doesn't have that already. So we then go back and see what it's going to tell us to do. Upload the new zip, which we did. There's a subtle bug there. Great. Okay, it's found a bug. So it's now repackaging up those files for us. What I can also do is tell it, don't give me all the files, because 143 files is like so much to upload. I can say, just give me the files you fixed in their structure. So we don't mind. It didn't take us that long. Let's get rid of so go to there and delete that file, which we did before. So we'll delete it again. Back up to live. And this is not going the way I was hoping it would go today. So usually it would go a little bit smoother. I thought I chose the most easy to do one, but I clearly did not. It's actually lost that env file altogether. It didn't even create one. So that's what we'll do, is install those new files. Now it's downloaded them, and open it up, go back into my file manager, load up the new files. Let's try it again. Base 3, ASOC, and in we go. Now I notice it hasn't created an env file, so we'll just do that. So overwrite. So it's trying to call on things that don't exist. So it's going to be another error, because that env file, it hasn't actually created another one, because it's what it's called a hidden file. It can't do that. So I'm going to say, give me the env file here so I can copy and paste. Because there's going to be these little quirky things that you probably will need not a developer, you don't need a developer, but someone who knows how to work with web hosting, they can help you out with that. So this is the content of that env file that it's not finding. That didn't find it. So I'm going to create a new file, call it .env. And these are the environment variables. So in other words, what are the things that need to be known inside this to make it work? I then got to fill in my database name, my database username, and my database password. So I'll grab that information again. The database name is here. And this is one of the things that all these tools, they kind of get a little bit funny on. They don't remember everything. So you need to go in and sometimes fix things up. So the database username is there. And the database password is here. We go. God, hopefully we'll get there this time. Save it, clear my cache, and then we go back all again and rerun it. There we go, fixed. So if I go to these now, they will go to the right places. So it's going to go, that's all right. I haven't created that page yet. The membership page, it's all in the right place. It's going to that live directory. So I've now got that running. So I log in with my username and password. It's now logged in at the correct place. I can look at my admin panel, which this is a website system that I created that's running basically associations. So, you can have all your members listed there. You can have people who are pending approval as memberships, a directory of members if it's a business directory. All the events, it's got an event manager in there. You can create an event and it will appear in there. So you can link through to either an Eventbrite or something like that, or you can actually have ticketing that's managed from within the system itself. And then things like setting up your payment gateways. So for instance, using Stripe, Square, or PayPal as your payment, you can type all those in as well. But this is a big system that I built that is complex and has a lot of moving parts, and probably took about 6 hours to build. But now I can roll this out to any association anywhere and they've got their own system that's built specifically for them, rather than buying something off the shelf for like $3,000 a year to run all their memberships and their recurring memberships and all that sort of thing. So this is the kind of thing that people like me, like I'm no coder at all, are able to build a full-featured website system that now does all this. There's even a little CRM in there, so you can see, who's joined and when, what stages they're at. There's an email newsletter system in there. So I've built all these into this app that's now rolled out onto a new website here. So I can go, in this case, it's marked down as Indonesian Chamber of Commerce WA, but it doesn't have to be them. It can be anyone. So I can go to the front of the site. I can go into my modules and enable them. There's a blog. There's that email system I showed you as well. I can go and look at the settings for the actual site and change it to my association and change it to my ASOC. My ASOC could be better. And then all the different contact details for that particular association. So notice that's now changed the name up here to my ASOC instead of ICCWA. If I go back to the front end now, that also should now be my ASOC. And it's now, I can change each one of those modules one by one. And every one of these now works. It's just I've got no events or news in there at the moment. And the contact details, I haven't created that page yet. So that's essentially some steps, some complex steps. Most of the things you're going to create will not need this level of complication. My problem is that I'm not hosting it at a particular website address. I'm hosting it at a subfolder of a website. So that's the problem I came across. And every time I try to fix it, it's forgetting that's what I'm doing. So I had to remind it of that and then go and tweak a couple of those files in here manually, like this one here, to put that in. But overall, if you say, I'm hosting this with HostGator, I'm hosting this with SiteGround, I'm hosting this with Bluehost, it will give you the instructions step by step, like it did with Claude here, on how to do that. And as you find things that go wrong, copy and paste in the error, like I did there, and it'll go, oh, okay, yeah, I know what's wrong. Here's the fix for it. And it'll give you that fix to overload in there. In my case, SiteGround does a lot of caching, so I need to clear my cache every time I have an update to that file, and then I can run it again. In your case, that might not be an issue. You may not have that sort of caching enabled, but essentially what I've built there, I'm not particularly talented and particularly well skilled in this, but I built a replacement for WordPress and a replacement for $3,000 plus association management software systems. And it took me 6 hours. And you saw that to make that go live on a real site at a real address took us 30 minutes. Not bad, huh? And I had everything go wrong. So that's the possibility you've got. I'm going to unshare the screen now. What your job is now to do is to work out how you would do this, what your particular web hosting would be for this. But the key thing, remember, is to make sure that when you're building your first web app, you don't build something super complex. Build something small so you get used to the idea of how web hosting works. If you're building something you want to go to millions of users or even tens of thousands of users, don't do what I did here. This is building a standardized web app that's built around very, very standardized web hosting setups. So it's using PHP to do it. It's using JavaScript to display everything, HTML to work in with the internet, and using a MySQL database. That will handle for me a couple hundred users a day, no problem. Once you start going up to thousands of users per day, it'll start to get slow and it might need some further tricks. But, if you're going to be building an app that's that big and that successful, what you probably need to do is start paying someone to make that a scalable app. But this gets you started with what could be your working prototype. And then what you can do is once you've got that done and you've got something working, you can hand that off to a developer who can then make the big bold thing that's going to go to the millions and make you millions of dollars and be on scalable web architecture rather than on a simple web hosting platform.